All right, I'm speaking with Marilyn Sherman. It is September 26th, and great. Thanks a lot, Marilyn. So first of all, can you give me kind of the elevator pitch or brief description of your business?
I'm a motivational keynote speaker, primarily in the corporation association market. I'm hired to kick off a convention or to close a convention to inspire audiences to get out of their comfort zone and live their life in the front row.
Great, and I've watched a couple of your videos, so I'm somewhat familiar with what you do. So do you primarily focus in one industry or across industries?
I'm definitely cross industries, but I'm very popular in the food service industry simply because I hit it out of the park 12, 13 years ago in a specific food service association, and they hired me back every year for 12 years.
Wow,
so
that's great.
A lot of decision makers in food service saw me and hired me to their own groups.
Okay, that's good. So if we take a look at a pie chart of your revenue, what percent would be keynotes, training, workshop, consulting, products?
95% keynotes, and then 5% would be products.
And the products would be books?
Books, or not CDs anymore, books and DVDs.
Okay. So I'm just going to read you the next one so we're consistent across interviews. We're trying to study best practice defined as having a CSP and a full-time speaking business whose revenue over 3 of the last 5 years was at least $100,000 in gross revenue. Does that describe your business?
Yes.
Okay. And did your revenue from your speaking business during any of the last 10 years exceed $250,000?
It just hit it.
Oh, congratulations. Okay.
Yeah, just hit it. Yeah.
And that was in 2016?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So when did you give your first paid or unpaid speech?
Literally, my first paid speech.
Yeah.
Like when I was to speak, 1980.
Okay.
I was still in high school, and I was paid to speak at a health education conference from a student's perspective.
Congratulations. Okay.
Yeah, so I got the bug while I was still in high school.
Okay, that's great. And, okay, so then we're going to have to do this a little differently then. So then when did you go off on your own in your own speaking business?
Oh, I left corporate America in 1993 to work for a seminar company full-time. So that's when I first said I took the leap. And contracted with a seminar company. So I let go of the paycheck, let go of benefits in 1993.
So what were you doing before 93?
I was working for a finance company in training and development.
So you were in training and development for a finance company. Yeah. And then the seminar company you worked with, what was the name? Was that like Franklin Covey?
SkillPath.
SkillPath.
SkillPath seminars.
SkillPath, yeah. Are they still around?
I think so, but they may have merged with Fred Pryor.
Okay, all right. And then you were
I'm
with
not sure.
You were with them until when?
I was there for 5 years, 93 to 98, and I left in 1998.
And then in 1998, did you start your own company?
Well, I sort of transitioned while I was still with SkillPath. So I started to generate some interest on my own, and then in 1998 I made the break.
And so when? Okay. Let's see. How are we going to do this? So when did you start speaking in that 93 to 98 time frame? When did you start speaking on your own outside of SkillPath?
Probably probably that last year.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think I may have gotten like 1 or 2 engagements, and I thought, okay, I don't need Skill Path anymore. So I stopped in 1998
Okay.
and went on my own.
Okay, so so when you were with Skilled Path, were you an independent contractor?
Correct.
Okay, so then let's do this. So let's talk. Let's say year 1 was 1993. So
Okay.
I'm looking at a chart that's years, 20 years, and then on the horizontal axis, and on the vertical axis is revenue. And we're trying to plot when did your revenue take a big jump, and then what were the actions attributable to that. So if the revenues are on the vertical axis and they are gross speaking revenue, in 1993, about what was your gross speaking revenue that would include your skill path? I guess that was your skill path, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Approximately. Was it 40 or 150 or?
No, I think I was, with Skill Path, I was doing in 93 to, I think it was pretty consistent, between 50 and 100 through those 5 years.
Okay, so let's see here. So let's say 93. Let's say 93 was 50. That makes sense, right? Your first year.
Yeah.
And then let's say in 94 it was about what?
I really don't remember, but
okay, all right.
But
okay, all right. So hold on.
I really don't remember.
Yeah, okay, 97 and 98. Okay, so okay, and then.
But then I know it went down when I went out on my own.
Okay, all right.
So then, I was definitely at 6 figures in 1997, and then I went out on my own, and it dropped dramatically.
So in 97, was it 100?
Yeah, it was at 100, and then I went down dramatically, and then I clawed my way back up.
So in 98, your first year in your own business, about how much was it? How much did you make?
Oh, God. I was probably down to probably 25, maybe at the most. It really dropped.
Yeah, and then in...
I started over, and I do remember having to, like, cash in my 401k and go through my savings, and I crawled my way back up.
Cash in your 401k, okay, savings.
Yeah.
Okay, and then in 1999, so in 98 it went to drop to 25, and then where did it go the next year about?
Jeez Louise. There was a few years I was crawling, so I don't even know. I mean, it was pretty low.
So when did it start to? When did it? So then, what year did it start to ramp up?
Geez, I didn't know you were going to ask me all these number questions.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's do this another way. Let's start with 2016.
Yes.
Okay. In 2016, what was it?
2016, we hit right around 250.
That's great.
And that was a big jump because I had one client who hired me for 12 events.
Okay, we're going to get back to that, to why. Okay, and then in 15, what was it?
In 15, it was, it was, okay, I had all of this.
Okay, I'll tell you what, why don't I... Can you get that while I ask you some other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So let me just... so at Skill Path, what were you speaking on?
When I started, there were only 37 speakers at Skill Path, and when I left, there were 237 speakers. So when I was first hired, I was doing like maybe 1 or 2 topics, and then when I left, I was doing like 12 or 13 topics. So I was one of those, my scores were good, my evaluations were good, so whenever they came up with a new topic, they threw a new topic at me. So I became one of those speakers who could speak on everything, which wasn't very good when I tried to go to the marketplace and someone would say, well, what do you speak on? And I said, well, I could speak on anything.
Okay, and then, so about how many speeches did you give, how many days did you work per year at Skill Path?
I did, I was doing about 75, 80 dates a year with Skill Path.
Okay.
I did a lot. And then when I left, it just like dropped drastically because then I went cold turkey. Some people gradually, leave,
Yep.
but I went cold turkey.
Okay, all right. Well, the path that you took working for a seminar company is very, very similar to the path I'm seeing over and over again with the successful speakers. It seems like that is one consistent, fairly consistent observation. I mean, it's not 100%, but I would say 70% of the time. Okay, let me just see here. So how did you land your first speaking, your first paid speaking gig in like 97, 98? How did you land that job?
That was pure networking in San Diego. Someone that I knew someone who owned a company, and they hired me for a Christmas party, and it was Rubio's Fish Tacos, and he hired me half in fee and half in Rubio's Fish Taco gift certificates, and that literally was 1997, and 20 years later, they hired me again. They've hired me a couple of times this last year, so it was really funny that they pay me a lot more now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and what advice would you give to aspiring speakers?
The advice that I would give is that a seminar company is an amazing way to get stage time and get in front of audiences, but never rely on them to send you work. Always be building your own brand and your own list. If people came up to me and heard me someplace, or they said amazing things and want to stay in touch with me, I had the right to keep their card and stay in touch with them. What I did not do very well was to put them into a database to keep in touch with them on a regular basis. So I never did that, and I still don't do that. So that's the advice I would give. That's the only really regret that I have in my longevity in this in this industry, is that I didn't keep track of all the people that became raving fans. So now that I'm on my own, I don't have that database that I could go back to. Like I have a new book coming out in a couple of weeks. I would love to just send a press release to all my fans over the years to say, hey, you haven't seen me in a while, but I've got a brand new book. I'd love for you to review it, or I'd love for you to take a look at it, or I'd love for you to get on the happy train with me and take a look at this, or, I didn't do that. So that would be a good piece of advice that I would have.
So if you work for SkillPath and somebody gives you a card, can you ethically contact them?
Yes. What I couldn't do with SkillPath is I couldn't take the mailing list and import the mailing list into a database.
Okay.
But if I had individual people come up to me and say, I really loved you, let's stay in touch, I could do that.
Okay. Are you sure?
No, I'm not sure. This is 1998.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure either. That'd be interesting. Okay.
I'm not sure. And you know what? The owners of the company now could be different owners,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different world.
It's
a different world.
Yeah.
And everybody's got websites now, so I'm probably not the right person to talk about that, because literally it was 20 years ago.
Okay, all right, no problem. So, on a scale of 1 to 10 for speaking mastery, who would be your 10?
Speaking mastery? What do you mean? In terms of their performance or in terms of their business acumen? What do you mean?
More on the platform.
Mark Sherman.
And so on a scale of 1 to 10, if Mark were a 10, how would you rate your delivery?
My delivery? I think if Mark is a 10, I'd give myself a 7.5.
Okay. And what have you done to perfect your delivery?
My delivery is very it's organic and authentic, which means, like, for example, last week I did an event for Church's Chicken. And Church's Chicken is a chain of fried chicken fast food restaurants.
Yep.
And my audience, I was so in the flow with them, and I was so present with them that I quoted a song by Orange Juice Jones. And I started singing, I Saw You Walking in the Rain. And it was so hilarious and so funny, but it just came to me because I was in the moment with this audience. So my client hired me and loved me because I am so real and authentic. Mm-hmm. Now, will I ever use the Orange Juice Jones reference again? I don't know. Because my speeches are never the same speeches twice. Mm-hmm. So, like a Mark Sherman, he will do that keynote, and maybe with adjustments different every time. But me, I'm very. I will change up my presentation in the moment depending on my audience.
Yeah.
So what I do is I work on getting to know who's in my audience every time I speak, so that I can take my message, which I know really, really well, and I can deliver it in the best way possible for whoever's in front of me.
And how do you get to know your audience? Is that?
I show up early. Okay,
so what do you do?
Like next week I'm doing Del Taco, and I'm their closing keynote speaker, but I'm not speaking next week. I'm not speaking next week before that, so I'm literally flying in a day early, and I'm going to see the opening keynote speaker, and then I'm going to sit through their sessions. Now that may be a little obsessive, but by the end of the conference, I will be one of them. Mm-hmm. So that's what I do. Some people are really good on the phone and they interview people. And if I was back-to-back slammed with events, I would also do that. But in lieu of that, I will show up early and I will attend sessions.
Okay, all right.
And see what they're seeing.
So have you hired many speaker coaches or anything?
I hired Lou Heckler.
And what do you think about that? How did he help you?
Oh, he reminded me that I am not the hero of my own stories, that I need to, there's a fine line between saying, look what a great life I have, versus, oh my gosh, this was so cool, let me tell you about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he helped me be really cognizant of not being cocky, but really shining the light on this is, not being cocky and not showing off, but looking at this is cool. And then Kelly Swanson is helping me with stories and to bring out the vulnerability, because people need to see, I believe, that if you just see a speaker and only see what you're seeing today, but you don't know their backstory, you may not believe that they had any struggle. So Kelly Swanson is helping me craft a story to help show that, yes, in fact, I have struggled. Even though I don't have any trouble with vulnerability on stage, I'm working on crafting a new story that is more relevant to my audiences today, if that makes any sense.
Yep. And if you would use a speaking coach today, who would you use? I mean, for an aspiring speaker, who would you recommend that they use? Is it like a Lou, or is it go to Mark Scherenbrock's boot camp, or Kelly? Or...
I have not been to Mark and Eric's boot camp. I've been to Kelly's storytelling camp. I've been to Connie Podesta's boot camp. I would say to do their homework, because it all depends. I have spent so much money that there are certain speakers out there, and I don't want to go on tape mentioning who they are. But there are certain speakers out there who will promise you to be a $1 million speaker, and they badmouth NSA.
Yeah, I've spent money on those people.
And I got hooked up into that vortex of, learn from me and I can help you make back of the room sales, and it'll pay for this coaching and more. And I got sucked into that, and I'm so ashamed of that. And we spent a lot of money on that, and I never will speak up because the guy was so good at having a camera in my face that he has it on tape that I said something that this was worth the price of admission. Yeah. So I could never say anything because I don't want the publicity to come back.
Okay, no problem.
So my advice for speakers would be, do your homework. Talk about people, ask people, okay, what kind of money have you made as a result of this person that promised you that you would make this much money? Or what have you done differently as a result of investing in this money? Would you invest this money again? So it all depends. If you want to craft better stories, it would be the storytelling boot camp with Kelly. If you want to talk about money and making more money in a keynote, then Connie Podesta she's so good at earning more money with the keynote. So I would talk to people depending on what your need is and what you want out of your speaking business. Just do your homework.
So with Connie, it's making more money with the keynote. With Kelly, it's stories.
Correct. Kelly's was all about storytelling and crafting a story and pulling a story out of you. Connie was more like the business of running a keynote speaking business, including fees and how to process fees, or how to quote your fees, and how to negotiate your fees or not negotiate your fees,
and Lou,
and how to
go ahead.
And Lou was about your whole keynote and crafting your keynote.
the arc of your keynote.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can't speak about Eric and Mark's because I have not been.
Haven't been. Okay. So let's move on to content expertise. So on a scale of 1 to 10, if Peter Drucker, let's say, would be a 10 in management, or Deming would be a 10, how would you rate your content expertise in your field?
Content expertise. Well, my content as an inspirational, motivational speaker is based on my own market around front row leadership and front